All right, this is my team. My name is Jaffer, Kai, Caitlin, and Lee. We're talking about the philosophy of existentialism and the other discussions and further changes to the philosophy, like absurdism and pessimism and rationalism. But first, we need to know what existentialism is, and I'm going to let Caitlin talk about that.
Thank you, Jaffer. Hello. So, existentialism is a philosophical view of trying to find human meaning in our lives. So, we create our own destiny by the choices that we make. So, one philosopher that contributed a lot to existentialism is Gabriel Marcel. He's a French philosopher. And one of his big points is freedom and how that influences us. And so he believed that what spawns true freedom is when we are driven to prove or like how meaningful we are by accepting how meaningless our life is. So I know it's weird. So an example of this is that, let's say like we identify ourselves like, I am a doctor, I am rich. And by doing that, we are trying to give meaning to by saying that we are not this. So like I'm rich, but I'm not poor. And so we are identifying ourselves and as like we are an object and putting ourselves in that same category. And this, sorry. Oh my God, wait. Okay, I'm sorry. And so another part for Gabriel Marcel is that he liked to put in religious context and how he explained existentialism. And then this is just the quote from Rick and Morty. Okay, so what goes along with existentialism is absurdism, and it's the significance and the insignificance of human life. So when we start to understand the cosmic insignificance of humanity, we are one planet in an infinite, many planets inside a galaxy within an infinite amount of galaxies, with an infinite amount of universes. So we understand and start to see the frivolity of human existence in the world that we know. So the Frankenstein complex, that can be seen in the Meeseeks episode of Rick and Morty. The Meeseeks blame their creator for bringing them into existence, and they keep saying over and over again that we are not meant for this realm. This is, we're not supposed to continue living here. So people start to resent their creators for bringing them into existence. And then I will pass it off to Jaffer.
I'll be speaking about the original father of existentialism, and that is Soren Kierkegaard, back in 1850s. But around those times, a lot of people were surrounded by death and famine and ill. Just like what Caitlin said, a lot of us put a lot of energy in our lives trying to define meaning to our lives, like religion and fighting for justice and education, or art and beauty. And existentialism asks the question next. Who's to say that these things give you guys life, give your life any meaning, but they can give you meaning, but they also cannot. there's no man, Kierkegaard said there's no man on this earth that has been completely content for more than half an hour of their entire life, any half hour of their entire life. He was raised in a sort of a wealthy family, and his father was very devout Christian. By the time he was about our age, at 22, 7 of his siblings and parents passed away. It was just him and his brother. But later on, that happened too. It drove him to do a lot of work. He published 3 works in a number of years, but most of his works were never about making money or being famous. He just wanted a sort of way out of the way to let all these thoughts out. The only 2 people he despised were the most 2 people that he despised were the bourgeoisie because of their smugness and discontent with the rest of society, and the Danish church for the allegiance that their followers had, and they took advantage of most of their followers. Another thing that drove him to his existentialist specifically was a failed romance with his it's like a high school sweetheart back when they were 18. So he asked the question about marriage: will I regret marrying this person, or will I regret not marrying this person? People will regret making fun of the ills of society, and regret not and weeping over the ills of society eventually. He says ultimately, do it, you will regret it. Don't do it, you will regret it in the end. And some of this work really inspired different philosophers like Camus, John Paul says here, different branches of thought. He coined the term Angus, which later became angst, which is ultimately having a lot of choices in your life and not. It's the dizziness of freedom is what he ended up saying, but it's basically having a lot of choices of what to do, but not knowing how to execute these choices. Anxiety is the dizziness of freedom. So this doesn't exactly represent that. It showed me a lot of angst. Yeah. So Rick Sanchez, I think Rick Sanchez represents a lot of the philosophies of Kierkegaard, and another philosopher around the same time, Schopenhauer, about his pessimism and rationalistic worldview. He shows a lot of sarcasm, yet he's very nonchalant about the pain and suffering that goes on. And then there's Jerry Smith, who represents the opposition of existentialism, which is essentialism. And essentialism is I'll describe that later. This shows a lot of episodes show Jerry very oblivious to what's going on around him and how simple his life is, that he lives it when it's really, there's a lot going on in his family and outside of him. Yeah, so essentialism to Jerry, life has intrinsic meaning and purpose, but it's up to the individual to find that purpose. A quote from Arthur Schopenhauer, the life of every individual viewed as a whole and in general, when only its significant features are emphasized, is really a tragedy, but gone through in detail has a character of a comedy. So a lot of your life you will be sad or upset about what happened to you, but if you look at it from outside of your eyes, it's there's a lot to be, you can look back at and laugh about. I'll kick it off. Thank you, Jeffrey. So I'm going to be talking about the rationalism of Rick and Morty, basically what rationalism is, and then how it ties into Rick and Morty. So rationalism is a belief or theory that action should be based on reason and knowledge, not emotional response or religious beliefs. And these are little like ideas or like connections with rationalism. So deduction is applying principles to draw conclusions, which is like finding the area of like a rectangle will always be the same no matter how big the rectangle is. You'll always do the same thing over and over again. Innate ideas are ideas that we are born with that we don't learn from experience. So like a baby, like staring at faces for a really long time, they're trying to see like what's going on. They don't have like experience with that. That's just what they're born with. And then reasons is using logic to arrive at a conclusion when we immediately know something to be true. This is an episode of Rick and Morty. The next one. So they tie in together. Season 1, episode 9 is Rick's Potion. When they talk about it's 50-50. Oh, the love chemical. There we go. So love is not an emotion. It's a chemical reaction that happens in the brain. And then 60 minutes is the everybody doesn't have a purpose. No one's born for a reason, and we're all going to die. And then the Me Seeks and Destroy is about kind of like the Frankenstein complex, where like everyone's being pulled in from random places and they don't want to and stuff like that. And so a big part of this is Friedrich Nietzsche. Nietzsche. He's a German philosopher who lived in the mid-1800s. Published numerous major works of philosophy, one of them being The Parable of the Madman, which is a really important thing about existentialism. So The Parable of the Madman is basically about the death of God, how there's a madman who goes into a market and says, where is God? You killed God and stuff like that. And the actual whole meaning around this is God being dead in philosophy, how philosophers consider him dead. And so this causes a void in the meaning, which is nihilism, which Kai will talk about.
Alright, so existentialism in Rick and Morty. So this guy, Friedrich Nietzsche, he was a philosopher in Germany in the late 19th century. And when he was a kid, he excelled in Greek literature, causing him by his mid-20s, he became a professor in Germany. And his beliefs were that his first major belief was that Christianity was bad because it taught us how to avoid envy, but he believed that envy was a good thing because it pushed us towards our goals. And so he disliked religion, and he also disliked alcohol because alcohol gave you a sense that everything was all right and that the life you were living, no matter if it was good or bad, was an all right life. And this can be seen in Jerry first. Jerry, he lives like a meaningless life, but he's satisfied with that life, and that's why he's seen as kind of dumb. And Rick is an active nihilist, and what an active nihilist is someone that tries to live life to its fullest, knowing that life is meaningless. He tries to live life to its fullest, and he tries to change values that humans have because he wants to think outside the box and change things. He doesn't want to be like everyone else, kind of wants to be normal. So Rick hates government because of this. He's an active nihilist, and when he goes to in one episode, he goes to the government of Rick's, and he makes fun of them, saying, "You're Rick's, you hate government. Why are you creating a government?" And so that makes Rick an active nihilist. And Rick he's also seen as being a passive nihilist, which is like when you realize that life is meaningless and you lose hope. And in one episode, Rick tries to commit suicide, but the machine breaks before he actually dies. And this philosopher, Albert Camus, was also a heavy influence in the Rick and Morty series. He had a major influence on this thought of absurdism, which absurdism was the constant search for meaning in a meaningless world. And this can be seen in the mystics. The mystics constantly search for meaning, causing them to go crazy. And Camus said you can approach absurdism 3 different ways, which is suicide, succumbing to a religion, or just embracing it and living life to its fullest. And this can be seen when some of the mystics just start committing suicide in the show. And yeah, that's all. Any questions?
I was going to close it with an audio clip, but I didn't end up using it because but it's someone that speaks to groups of people noticed that today's youth and even very famous people anywhere on the continent you go, a lot of people open up to other people saying that they feel like there's not a lot of meaning in life and there's not a lot of connection. So and it was sort of a picking up because a lot of this topic is a downer. But yeah. So anyone have questions about philosophers or topics?
Is anyone depressed after this?